Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to the end of August recap. Another busy month on the channel, so now it's time to recap it all. August started out being dominated by the Summer of Lovecraft, along with some other adventures in the Cthulhu mythos, before we moved over to the war games. Let's start with the game recaps, and the first order of business we needed to address for this month was finding an opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft. That's where our first game came in, and where we'll start with the game recaps, Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu by Z-Man Games has you running around the major cities of the Cthulhu mythos, trying to seal gates at those respective cities. You're trying to seal gates in Arkham, Dunwich, Innsmouth, and Kingsport, along with the ancient ones at the top of the board. And the ancient ones along the top of the board were actually how we were determining the opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft. So the win in this case was secondary. I was more interested in which ancient one was the last one to wake up in the game. Whichever ancient one was the last one to wake up at the end of the game was going to end up being our opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft. We did win that game with the occultist and the hunter finishing out the game, but the last ancient one to wake up was Yig. So Yig ended up being our opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft. A game I really enjoy, and I can see using it in this thematic way to help me decide the opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft in future years. So that's it for Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. After that, we jumped right into the Summer of Lovecraft as we played Eldritch Horror. Eldritch Horror by Fantasy Flight Studios has you running around the world trying to solve mysteries around the Ancient One. You need to solve some number of mysteries before you can win the game. If the Ancient One wakes up, you also have a final mystery that you have to deal with, which happened to us in our playthrough. We had a lot of fun with it, but like I said, we came down to the final mystery, which ended up in an epic showdown with Yig. So we did take a 1-0 lead in the Summer of Lovecraft as our nun with a gun came into South America and helped us steal Eldritch Horror from Yig. So again, another fun playthrough, and we ended up with a 1-0 lead. Next up, we continued in the Cthulhu mythos as we stepped into the Call of Cthulhu universe for Call of Cthulhu: Alone Against the Flames. Call of Cthulhu: Alone Against the Flames by Fantasy Flight, by Chaosium Incorporated is an adventure set in the Cthulhu mythos. If you're familiar with the Call of Cthulhu system, this is a solo adventure, and it's a way you can help build out your character. We've featured this on the channel a few times before, but this was the first time we got the outcome that we did. So this was obviously a fun adventure for us as well. But we ended up blowing up a section of New Hampshire about 16 miles in diameter, and yeah, it killed us as well. And that was actually one of the funniest parts of the adventure at the end, was your death was almost an afterthought because the game was so hyped about you blowing up the aforementioned section of New Hampshire that was about 16 miles in diameter. So yeah, we had a strange chant that we learned just for that purpose from almost getting burned alive in the beacon. But that's it for Call of Cthulhu: Alone Against the Flames. Next up, we were back to the Summer of Lovecraft as we played the second leg, Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Arkham Horror 2nd Edition by Fantasy Flight has you running around the city of Arkham trying to seal gates and basically do anything to deal with the Ancient One, trying to prevent the Ancient One from waking up and trying to destroy the world, which was especially critical as we were facing Yig, and the final battle would have had us rolling cursed dice right at the start, so I was like, yeah, we're not going to win that. We're not going to win a final battle, most likely, against Yig. So we managed to run around, keep the game fairly close, and we defeated Yig by closing gates on the board and having a number of gate trophies equal to the number of investigators, which, of course, was 4, because that's how many I run when I play these Arkham Horror Files games solo. So with our win against Yig in Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, we actually took a mathematical win in the Summer of Lovecraft as we were up 2-0 coming out of Arkham Horror 2nd Edition with only one leg left to go in Elder Sign. So that's it for Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Next up, we moved back to the Call of Cthulhu universe for Call of Cthulhu: Alone Against the Tide. Call of Cthulhu: Alone Against the Tide is another Call of Cthulhu adventure, similar to Alone Against the Flames. This time, it sent us into a watery adventure as we dealt with a very different town, starting out with an estate sale. I won't get into the spoilers on that. You can go through and watch the episode for yourself on the channel. But in the end, it was definitely a fun adventure as well. But we ended up consumed by Bakurug as we were trying to wait out the final flood at the end of the scenario. So we have one adventure that ends with an explosion, and the other that ends in a flood. So that's it for the Call of Cthulhu Alone adventures. Last up, we played the final leg of the Summer of Lovecraft as we played Elder Sign. Elder Sign by Fantasy Flight Studios is a very similar game to Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, where you're trying to gather up Elder Signs to keep the Ancient One sealed away. We needed 10 Elder Signs against Yig versus 8 Doom. We could not get any rolling going to save our lives, so we ended up losing Elder Sign very handily as our Ancient One woke up and 3 of our investigators would have gotten devoured, so at that point I just ended up tapping out and calling it a game because, again, we're not getting through that in a million years. We were able to thankfully were still able to win the Summer of Lovecraft, mathematically speaking, 2-1. But we might see Yig again for Christmas in Arkham. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on that, though. So that's it for Elder Sign and the Summer of Lovecraft. Next up, we brought a new war game to the channel, which is also the 10th and final game on my Tack Up Wargaming list for the year, in Target for Today. Target for Today from Legion Wargames dumped you into an American bomber during World War II over Nazi-occupied Europe. We had the crew of the Phoenix's Fury all ready to go on their second mission together. So this is very heavy narrative focus, which I really enjoy in these war games, especially I've been kind of exploring them this year. This has very much been a year of exploration, especially on the war game front for me, because wargaming's been a whole new arena for me this year. So it's been nice to have the exploratory focus there and discovering that I really like heavy narrative tactical games. But I can see how it might get a little bit repetitive on the mechanics of the game, where it's just roll dice, consult the charts. There is a very long campaign, though, and we're definitely going to sink our teeth into it. Just because there's a lot of content here to dig our teeth into. So that's it for Target for today. Next up, we had an old favorite on the channel in Terra Mystica. Terra Mystica from Pure Land Spiel has you trying to build up your living space for whatever faction you're playing, and via transforming and building your living space out. You can also get victory points for specific actions during the game. I'm apparently tongue-tied tonight, which is all kinds of fun. We took out the Swarmlings this time against the Simpletons once again. It was definitely a nail-biter, but we ended up winning the game thanks to a heavy cult track focus. We managed to get most of the cult tracks and win most of the points on there, so that was a big help. Now, Jester did make a comment on the video about having Terra Mystica pretty much down, and I'm glad I have this one down, because Terra Mystica for me is starting to turn into one of those reliable content gap filler games. So, say I have a campaign end early, or I just need a break from something, and I need a video. Terra Mystica is turning into one of those games where I can just drop it into whatever content gap I've got, and I know I'll always get a good video out of that game. It'll be a short video, so it's also fairly easy to put together. So definitely something that's never going to be far from kind of the back burner on that front. Next up on the list, we had another new game to the channel as we played Hornet Leader Carrier Air Operations. Hornet Leader Carrier Air Operations from Danverson Games puts you in command of a modern fighter squadron in various campaigns during the more modern eras of warfare, and you're trying to work over targets in whatever campaign you're playing. So we started Syria, and I'm probably not going to continue that campaign because I had a lot of problems with that campaign. A lot of them were of my own making, though. I ended up packing only air-to-air weapons, and I definitely need more of a balance on that. So I ended up with getting 6 of my 8 fighters shot down, 4 of which were in the first 2 turns, which was not a whole lot of fun for me. Again, a lot of that was my own problem, though, because I didn't pack the right mix of weapons. First time playing the game on the channel, stuff like that's going to happen. I'm still very new to that game, still learning it, and it looks like it's got some potential. I'm going to play around with it a little bit more. I'll probably get it on the channel again, but I want to spend some more time with it first. So, the longer plan I had with Hornet Leader was I eventually wanted to get the Cthulhu Conflict on the channel as well, to make that part of Mythos Month in the future, along with the Summer of Lovecraft, with the Cthulhu Mythos focus that August takes on. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. That's it for Hornet Leader. Now let's talk about the greatest boxer tournament and Title Bout 2. Title Bout 2 by Straight Jab Media is a boxing simulator where you set up your fight and go through a deck going through a boxing fight. We had some real shockers in the tournament this month, so we'll take a look at first the current. Let me pull it up here. We'll take a look at the current score sheet, which I'll move back over to this monitor, and we'll switch over here. So we can see that Matthew picked up another point from correctly predicting Sonny Liston over Buster Douglas, which took a 15-round warfare. Now we'll take a look at the brackets, which I think, whoops, we need to bring those over here as well. So here's our current bracket. Here's the aforementioned bout on Sonny Liston advancing over Buster Douglas in a 15-round war. Ivan Drago, we were in relay for the bouts this month. Ivan Drago decided he had enough of relay and just came out in round 3 with a knockout over Clubber Lang. But if we're having an award for Shocker of the Month, here's the Shocker of the Month, as Ken Norton took on Muhammad Ali in a first-round bout. And in a 15-round battle, Ken Norton pulled off the upset of the tournament so far as he eliminated Muhammad Ali to advance to facing Rocky Balboa in the quarterfinals. So that's it for the greatest boxer tournament and Title Bout 2. Now let's go ahead, bring it back up top, and we'll recap Mystical Munchies. With Mystical Munchies, we were cooking out of the Necro Nom 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 cookbook, which is a cookbook set in the world with recipes based on the world of H.P. Lovecraft. So the recipes we cooked out of there, the appetizer was the Otlak Nachos. These ended up being a bit spicy, but the recipe did turn out fine. Spicy and I don't really get along too well. It was more spice than I'm used to, I think. I would say it was spicy enough to notice, but it's probably not going to cause me any problems. It didn't cause me any problems. It didn't have habanero or jalapeno peppers, anything like that. Those would have sent me screaming for water. It's probably not going to do well to freeze this, and I don't think it'll keep well as leftovers anyway. Next up, we had the side, which probably could have passed for a dessert, in the oats of Dagon, aka apple crumb squares. The taste was fine on these, but they didn't hold together over the course of several days. I ended up junking these fairly quickly. The entree that we made was the deep-fried deep one, which was crab cakes. These actually tasted pretty good. I've always been a big fan of seafood, so that helped. The taste that on the ones that we used for the taste test was very buttery, but this was also the pan that I used more butter in to help hold the cakes together. And I do need to be careful about that if I ever cook this recipe again. Where it seemed to work a lot better when I put the cakes in and didn't touch them for the 5 minutes that they were on the skillet. So definitely will need to be food for thought there. And then the dessert was the Moon Beast pies. These ended up being very messy to work with, as you probably saw in the taste test. They were also very sweet, and I think almost a little bit too sweet, but I might just not be used to it anymore. I used to have a real sweet tooth where I probably have enjoyed something that sweet in my younger years, but now I think it was just too sweet. I did end up salvaging the cookies to be able to bring those into work, And in the future, it might be worth just forgetting the filling or doing the actual evaporated milk like I was supposed to use and just making the end pieces as smaller cookies. I think that would probably work a little better than trying to make the full whoopie pies. But that's it for the Mystical Munchies recap. Next up, let's go through Ask Me Anything. We actually didn't have any Ask Me Anything questions this month. So as a reminder, if you have something you want to ask me for this segment, put it in the comments section of any video for the month, starting from this month's recap until the last video of the month, with an AMA tag, and as long as it's not too personal, I'll probably answer that. With that, let's move to what's coming in September. September will send us right back into the Cthulhu Mythos after a couple of weeks away. It's getting to be about time for the fall campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. As is our usual tradition, the fall campaign will be a return campaign, and this year the Girls of the Fall will be going through a return to Path to Carcosa. We'll have a campaign intro for that sometime this weekend. Probably, I don't want to put a date on it because I don't know when it's going to be, but it's definitely going to be before Sunday, when the first scenario is lined up. So we're also going to have some sort of gameplay for Labor Day, and I'm expecting at least one game video for Labor Day since I'll be off work, but I wouldn't bet against me putting more on the channel, so keep an eye tuned to the channel, especially over Labor Day weekend, because I'll probably be putting few videos up on the channel. As for Wednesdays, we're going to have a variety of campaigns taking center stage. We'll be starting another background campaign, this time for Anne's End, Legacy of Gravehold. Then we'll have some more action in the Greatest Boxer Tournament and Title Bout 2. We still have one more bout in the first round of the tournament, but that should be fairly quick to clear, and that'll probably be the first video of the day to go up on Labor Day. After that, newly promoted Korvettenkapitan Zimmer will be returning to his U-boat in the Hunters, and will step back into a rematch with Malvin as we play Hero Realms. As I talked about the Greatest Boxer Tournament and Title Bout 2, I'm hoping in addition to the last bout in the first round, we'll get through two of the quarterfinal bouts in the month, and with the fall campaign, we'll be sending the tournament to Lost Carcosa. Starting in the second round, I'll add the cornermen to the tournament. So now for Mystical Munchies, we're going to do something a little bit different next month for Mystical Munchies. What we're going to do is we're going to have our first redo month on Mystical Munchies. These are recipes that we've screwed up, so this will serve as an attempt at redemption for these recipes. So the recipes we're going to visit are, for the appetizer, we're going to revisit Pitmaster's Choice out of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Blackspire Outpost Cookbook. I want to put these in for a lot less time in the broiler. I'm thinking probably like 2 to 3 minutes a side, and see how that turns out. For the side, we're going to stick with the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Blackspire Outpost Cookbook as we redo polystarch portion bread. The first time we cooked this, it was very peppery, and I want to see how it tastes when I pay attention to how much pepper I'm actually putting in there. For the entree, we're going back to the Marvel Eat the Universe cookbook as we cook Deadpool's chimichangas. You'll notice I said Deadpool's chimichangas, not chimichangitas. The recipe was actually Deadpool's chimichangitas, but that was part of the problem I had when I made Deadpool's chimichangitas, was we were doing a very small tortilla, and I think that was very frustrating to work with, and it also led to a lot of wasted material. So I'm going to see if it works better to bring the chimichangas up to full size rather than doing the chimichangitas. For the dessert, we're going to go back to the very first recipe that we cooked on Mystical Munchies, as we cook no-bake cookies out of my family binder. This time we're going to watch the milk mixture boil in real time, because I think that was part of the problem that we had when we made this recipe the first time, was I decided I wanted to get cute, let the milk mixture boil, and then come back to it when it was boiling. And that's where we got into a lot of trouble, where the recipe ended up drying out something fierce. So I'm hoping by watching the milk mixture boil in real time, we'll actually have less problems with that. Then for the drink, we're going back to the World of Warcraft New Flavors of Azeroth cookbook as we make up another batch of lava colada. I want to see if this thins out with more blender experience. It's very possible that it won't thin out, But part of it is just I needed a drink recipe for the month, because this month has 5 Saturdays in it. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. That's the end of August recap. Sunday we're starting the fall campaign for Arkham Horror the card game with the first scenario, Return to Curtain Call. And Wednesday we're starting a new background campaign for Aeon's End, Legacy of Gravehold. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.